but I just felt that as a minority, I moved to this city, to this community, and I do shopping at Westville. And then, no, we play at the Cameron Park. And then we do lots of activity inside the city to keep our city. The city is not this district, that district. That's how the council people are. We're not political people. We want to have our city to be a better place to live for generation, our kids and all that. And so that's just my comment. Thank you.
Just before we take maybe one last question, because it's almost noon, I do have the list. The green, purple, and yellow maps were prepared by NDC. Maps 101 and 102 were submitted anonymously. Map 103 was submitted by Lindbergh, Mr. I'm not sure which. 104 Carruthers. 105 Dana Sykes, and I believe Mr. Johnson, Councilman Johnson, also submitted the same map. Number 106 was, I believe, Jim Grivich. 107 Intramill. 108 was Hong. 109 Mellicher. Mr. Torres submitted maps 110 through 113. Mr. Shoemaker was 114. Mr. Kaufman 115. Mr. Sanchez 116. And of course 117 is Ann Grivich.
And before we move on, one of the comments that you had made asking about the previous voter measure that occurred, okay?
The measure that happened in 2009 that didn't pass, that really doesn't have anything to do with where we are right now. Yes, we did have a lawsuit. The council settled it. The law is very one-sided and extremely expensive to litigate. As a result of that, here we are. And so the goal here is to have the very best districting plan for the city to provide the maximum benefit to the entire city while we comply with federal and state law.
Can I ask you a quick question? Mr. Sanchez, is that Armando Sanchez, the plaintiff, or a different Sanchez?
That's a great question.
I would have to look it up. I don't have.
Okay, thank you.
Can we get that posted on the website? So they don't have to be tied to the map, but the list of who's what.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, the reason we didn't particularly want to identify the maker, or that because we wanted the process to be as focused on the maps as opposed to the personalities and politics as possible. We can certainly provide a list of who submitted maps, but hopefully the selection of the map will be based upon the merits of the maps as opposed to any other factors.
To some degree, you don't have to believe that someone who submitted a map, like Fred Sykes' wife submitted the whole 5, of course he supports supporting the whole 5. I just would like to know who's supporting what when they put it up there for those reasons. I mean, I understand Robert submitted like 5. I give you all the credit. That's the deal all the time. And you're supporting several different ones. But, I just think it would be a benefit to the residents to know who's submitting them and then also who's supporting them, like the plaintiffs and everything.
Okay, we have a couple first-time speakers that I want to get to before we wrap up. So we had a first-time speaker in the front here, JD.
Based on that September date that
The September
I
19th?
didn't misunderstand, we'll probably eliminate some maps in the future because they weren't presented in time?
Not necessarily.
Okay, but is it safe to assume that these maps that don't meet the 2 criteria are out of consideration?
They're not recommended for council to approve, as they could end up with additional lawsuits and violations.
At what point will we have the final product for council to consider, and will the community see the final choices before council actually makes the decision? And Mr. Douglas, will you be providing an opinion with regards to which ones you recommend be considered? And finally, will Mr. Councilman Roy Johnson's map, will he have to recuse himself, I guess, because he's making the final judgment? on a map? If his is one of the final, will he have the legal responsibility to recuse himself?
No.
Okay.
To answer your last question,
Thank you.
no. Line drawing exercise is line drawing exercise, and ultimately, the map will be based upon all of this input and the vote of all 5 council members. With respect to the first issue, the council could choose a map finally at the public hearing on November 7th. If they do choose a map on November 7th, it will have to be one that was already discussed and considered at the September public hearing. If they would like to instead consider or select a map that came in after the September 19th public hearing, then we will have to schedule another public hearing on one of those dates that Ms. Minnick spoke about. Mr. Johnson will be making recommendations at least about maps that he says are in fact do complete or comply with federal and state law and the terms of the settlement agreement as he understands them. Typically, we don't necessarily recommend one final map. The council could, if it wished, at the next public hearing, select one, and all of those maps will be available for everyone to see, and you'll all have an opportunity to give your input before they vote on any particular map. But they could also decide to narrow it down to, a smaller group and hold another public hearing. That does happen in some cities.
Just one follow-up question. Am I correct to say that Mrs. Ann Grivich map will not qualify unless there's an additional public hearing held? Because hers came in just allowed. Is she disqualified from that possibility?
No, I'm saying if they select a map at the November public hearing, it cannot be hers.
They would have
But
to
it
have
would
another
not. But yes, we would have to schedule another public hearing. So her map is not automatically disqualified. The council can certainly consider it.
Could they just move that public hearing that's scheduled? They have to stick to that.
It's not a question of moving the public hearing. Every map has to be the subject of at least 2 public hearings. So just moving the November public hearing won't change it because it's only right. Got it.
But your city council has committed to hosting as many public hearings as necessary prior to December 16th to be able to approve a map. And keeping in mind that maps need to go through 2 public hearings in order to be approved by the city council.
3 in the works, and we haven't.
We already have November 7th on the calendar. We have it as a tentative. We have November 14th as a tentative. We have council meetings that are occurring on November 21st and December 5th, so we can always add public hearings to those. But your council is fully committed to hosting 2 public hearings for whatever map is ultimately going to be selected. Do we have any other speakers that wanted to talk? Because I know we're a little over time, but I don't want to... Go ahead. We'll do 2 more. So 1 here, and then if there's 1 more. So you did submit, what was it?
Yes.
Okay. Number 116, got it.
I'm one of the plaintiffs, but I'm not here to get hate. This is exactly what happened in Las Vegas. Please don't laugh, because it wasn't an act of, it was not an act of terrorism, it was an act of the heart of people. And we're here right now as communities to embrace this and let's move forward. Because people can do weird things in your heart, and the root of evil stirs in your heart. And I'm a man of faith. And you didn't want to come visit our church right down the street in Westville. I'm a man of faith. I voted since I was 18. A Navy veteran, two enlistments. And I don't agree with the president that I was serving back then, but you know what? I embraced it, and I served as a hospital foreman. So I'm just here to say, my wife and I submitted that. We'll move forward. I'm going to these meetings all the time. I'm involved in my city. I stopped the development twice. So I'm here to stick up for my community also. I embrace the whole community. I visit the mall here. I visit the mall in the city of Industry. I support all cities because, a man of faith, Israel was not one nation. It was divided into 12 tribes. And we all got to work together. Okay? In the United States, we have 50 states plus territories. We're all one nation. Okay? That's my point of view on this.
Okay, so we'll get one final comment and then we're going to wrap up. Any other first-time speakers that I did not get a chance to give a comment to? Opportunity. Okay, Mr. Shoemaker, you get one final comment and then we do need to wrap up, but I will give you guys all the information about how you can continue to provide feedback and comments once Mr. Shoemaker wraps up for the final comment.
You know, I think it's one thing to point out that everybody took the time to do it. You know, I'm glad you did take the time. There's all, different ways of looking at things and, what's the perspectives. I've seen different things that go, yeah, if we could combine that and that, it might be better. So the ideas are there. The one thing about the argument about whether it's north, south, east, west, horizontal, Z, diagonal, whatever the case may be is, well, I want somebody who lives in my neighborhood. I've lived here 27 years, not one member of the city council, not one member of the state assembly, not one member of the state senate, not one U.S. senator, not one congressman, not, just going up the list, has lived in my neighborhood. We're not, the only way we're going to get somebody living in my neighborhood is that we count the number of blocks we have in the city, which I think is a couple thousand, and that's our city council. I don't get things done that. So the idea is when I looked at my map too, not only did I look at what was north-south, but where different things were. We're having development that could be occurring in BKK. There's 2, if not 3 council members who would be impacted. So we have somebody that's safe. We have the Heights, the Azusa Amon corridor, where you have a lot of businesses going there. There's people that have impact there. You also have what is it, Hong Kong Plaza. So we have shopping throughout the city that when I was drawing some of it, was taking that into account. Looking at it from the standpoint of, well, they might not have a say at Eastland, but they're going to they'll have some impact over here, and they might have a little input all over. The idea was, I didn't look at the map as who was sitting where. I was trying to figure out how to get close to the magic number without the thing being completely out of whack. I think when I went back and looked at it, people pointed out that I think Mike Spence is in one by himself. I think everybody in the city would be shocked that I have a council district that Mike Spence by himself, not somebody else lined up. So that wasn't the idea. It was the idea of how many of these communities can we, our city divided up and get as many people as we could. So I think Bryce, I think would be surprised if James Cone turns out to be one by himself also. So that was far from the idea, but the idea was how many communities can we get represented, and where we have a council member who we have to pay attention for, 2 if not 3 have to pay attention. So whichever way we go, I hope the idea that comes out is that you have 2 or 3 that have to pay attention, and you just can't ram things down one person's throat no matter where they live. That hopefully minimize that as much as possible.
Thank you. All right, so again, I want to thank you all for coming out this morning. We had a wonderful crowd that came out on a Saturday morning. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your personal schedules to be here today to provide the feedback. As a reminder, we have our next community workshop will be held on Thursday, October 12th at 6:30 p.m. over at our West Covina Senior Center. You can also, if you had some ideas that came up today after today's meeting, you can email your comments to districts@westcovina.org. You can hand deliver them to City Hall, and you can also complete our online form at westcovina.org/districts. Thank you all so much for coming today, and have a great rest of your weekend.
They can say or not say. I think knowing this council, you will hear from each and every one about why